Agenda item 15 is consideration of action regarding the joint development agreement, JDA, dated December 15th, 2010, between the Nevada Community Solutions and the City of Mesquite. Mr. Baker.
Mayor and Council, come before you this evening. For you is the opportunity to formalize your relationship with Nevada Community Solutions. Over the past few months, the city staff and some council members and mayor have met with NCS. I have a presentation here, I think, that will walk through kind of some of the high notes of what we're talking about this evening. Just to give you a brief background, back in December of last year, there was a letter written from the mayor to NCS asking NCS to reconsider the construction of their approved ARA, Additional Recreational Amenity, which is the amphitheater. On January 25th, a letter came back from NCS to the mayor, which gave options 1 and 2, which you have in your council packet. On the 31st, there was a conference call between some staff members and some representatives of NCS and some elected officials, some of you, where NCS was asked to re-examine or to provide some additional options. On February 3rd, there was a meeting here at City Hall between NCS and the city where we discussed some of those options, and then a third option was proposed by NCS in the form of a letter on February 14th. So there are 3 options presently offered by NCS on the table. So I just want to walk through options 1, 2, and 3 with you. A representative of NCS is here, Mr. Michael Parda. If you would like to go over any of these nuances of these, he's available. So option 1 would be to execute the existing joint development agreement that between the City of Mesquite and Nevada Community Solutions. This would include construction of the amphitheater, and it would also allow NCS to still purchase land if there was interest on NCS's part, because nothing would have changed within the existing agreement. The existing agreement does expire on June 30th, 2012. Option 2 would be to terminate the existing agreement with NCS. There would not be the construction of any additional recreational amenity. That would include the amphitheater. There would be no land purchase from NCS, and the NCS would provide the city the one-time lump sum payment of $350,000. Then option 3 is best explained with this map. It's a little bit more involved, and so we'll try to walk through these. The first step would be to terminate the existing JDA. The new agreement would allow NCS to acquire land that is presently available under the existing JDA. So it's that area in pink that you can see on the map right there. Everything that's in pink is what's eligible to be acquired right now. That includes areas in parcel 1, 2, and 4. Parcel 3 is outside of what is within the current joint development agreement. NCS would acquire parcels 1 and 2 immediately. They would use $540,000 in cash that they have and approximately $500,000 in interest credit to acquire these 2 parcels. That $500,000 in interest credit comes from the existing joint development agreement, again, where they have that given to them. Parcel 3, NCS would place $210,000 in escrow awaiting the city's acquisition from the BLM of parcel 3. Once the city purchases the area for parcel 3 from the BLM, NCS would authorize the $210,000, or approximately there, give or take a few dollars depending on the final acreage, to be paid from the escrow account to the city, and the city would transfer title to NCS for parcel 3. In discussions that we've had as staff, it appears that process to acquire that land from the BLM would take 9 to 12 months. And then for parcel 4, what parcel 4 is if the city does not successfully acquire parcel 3 in a timely fashion, 12 months, the city will convey for $210,000, the amount that's in the escrow account, parcel 4 to NCS and no other consideration. Or NCS can be refunded the $210,000 in escrow. That's NCS's choice to either take parcel 4 or take the 210 back. That would be up to their sole discretion. In looking at this There are some nuances to each of these options, and so if you would like to go through any of these particular options in greater detail, I'm just trying to provide a high-level overview of them at this time. So I'm happy to answer questions, and like I said, NCS representative is here also.
Thank you. I have a comment coming from Mr. Toon.
Thank you. I need to make a comment regarding option number 3. Talked to the city attorney. City Attorney Hunt, it's indicated we cannot recommend option 3 as written. NRS 268 contains some exceptions to the appraisal and public sale process of city property. One of the exceptions applies if a governing body is entering into a joint development agreement. What is being proposed here is a termination of a joint development agreement. The city attorney recommends under these circumstances that if the city council wishes to offer the land in question for sale, that it go through the public sale process. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Toon. Questions from council? Councilman Ramsden.
Marta, are you, or do you have the energy to go to the public auction?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. If I might, let me get to answer that question. But first, I want to make a couple comments. First, NCS provided the letter on January 25th with 2 options. I want to make it clear to everybody, which we have with you, I want to make it clear to the public based on some of the comments that I've had the privilege of reading or hearing. NCS prefers option 2. Clearly, NCS prefers option 2. I can explain why if anyone wants to hear that. Subsequent to that letter, the mayor reached out and said, we'd like to have a conversation. Mr. Baker's gone through in a 10,000-foot overview, sort of that scenario. The mayor's had asked us if there was any way that we would be interested in acquiring some land or providing more funds to the city. That's how option 3 came about. It's a request from you to us to provide a third option. So subsequently, we then had a meeting that included the city attorney, the mayor, a couple of council folks, city staff, and we had a conversation about what option 3 might look like. And again, that was maybe at a 2,000-foot level at that point. There was some discussion then about the potential of public auction. My recollection and Mr. Halpin's recollection in conversation today was that was focused on parcel 3, because parcels 1, just pointing at using the map, parcels 1, 2, and 4 are in the existing JDA and did not require, in our view, did not require public auction. We've had a lot of conversations today, given Mr. Baker's call to me, I believe after talking with Mr. Toon, is it? Thank you. And I believe our attorney also spoke with Mr. Toon today, in which it was clarified to us that all of these parcels would need to go through public auction. So now to answer your question. We are willing to go through the public auction process to be your backstop if in fact no other bidders show up. I would absolutely encourage every blogger and every other person in this community that feels that our company needs to go away to show up at the auction and bid. Because if it's $1 over the appraised value, we're not buying. So we're willing to be the backstop in the event that nobody shows up. Quite frankly, we absolutely hope you get 15 bidders showing up. And there's a real frenzy like there used to be in the heyday, shall we say. And the city can make way more money. We absolutely hope that to be the case. So we would go through that process. to go through that process, if you're so successful at then selling that land for, excuse me, more than the appraised value, we would then expect to have returned to us the $500,000 in interest, which again, for clarity for everybody, is interest that should have been earned on the $6 million we provided to the city had the city not spent it. That money is our money. I'm going to let that set for just a second, because some people seem to be very confused about all this stuff. That money is our money. We have been going through this process with your predecessors and now with you. We are willing to go through this next step if you so choose. We are also very willing to complete the JDA, although we understand that several of you and many of the public do not want to see an amphitheater. We're okay with that. We're also willing to leave under option 2. And I'd be happy to answer more questions if anybody has them.
Thank you, Mr. Parda. Any questions, any further questions from council? Mr. Lippman, is that a question?
No, I'm prepared to make a motion.
Okay, I do need to recognize Mr. Sawyer first.
I just want to point out that if the council goes with option 3, that it will take about 3 months to follow the state law and do everything that is necessary to get it to public auction. So I just want to make that clear, that this isn't going to be some rushed process. It will take at least 3 months.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Lippman, I'm going to entertain some other questions from council first, and then I'll get back to you. Any other questions from council? Go ahead, Councilman Gustavson.
I don't know whether they're questions or maybe just a statement. I'm a little concerned at this point in time that years ago, back when Mr. Parda first came to Mesquite, that we made some foolish decisions, and it wasn't his fault. We made those decisions. Those decisions were to get way ahead of development in this community and tie up property that we probably wouldn't have seen any development on for 20 years. And I kind of feel that's where we are. Some of the best parcels we have are what we're talking about today. And when the market's the lowest the market can possibly be, it makes little sense at all to me that we would even consider going ahead and selling parcels that, unless we're so desperate for cash, we think we need it. But I would hope that's not the case, because long term, it's not going to benefit us. It's going to hurt us in a big way, because that property is everything from recreation property to future hotels, to future businesses of all nature. And to give it away at this point in time when we're not ready for that development, I think is a mistake.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Hafen?
I concur. I would also like to tell the Halpin Group and Mr. Parda that regardless of what happens tonight, that we welcome the friendship. Hope that it's considers a friendship. Options are always here. I think that I do have to agree with Carl that I believe that in the beginning, I think that maybe the agreements weren't structured. They could have been better, I think. But there's always the option. When you have a bad contract, sometimes the best thing to do is start over. And so I just wanted to make sure that you understand at least one councilman's position with the Halpin Group. I consider them a reputable group, and appreciate the relationship thus far, and hope that there can be something worked out in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Rapson?
Yeah, this is a tough one, but I gotta tell you that I disagree. I think that we have land, it's been appraised. If we take it to the public auction, we will get the best price possible, even if it is the appraised value. Land fluctuates monthly, as we all know. There's parcels on downtown here, we're going for $350,000 an acre that couldn't get a dime for it today. It's life, it's the way it is. I think that until our city land is in private hands, there will be no development. We don't develop, so it has to go to private lands. I disagree with that. I appear to be in the minority, but that's just my thoughts, and I agree with Mr. Hafen. Absolutely, I think, unlike some people in this room, I believe the NCS has never done anything wrong. I think they're a reputable company. I think that most of the blame with what the perception is the city's fault, and I just think that without the land in public or in private hands, that will never be developed. And frankly, it'll never be on the property tax rolls either, as long as we own it. Thank you.
Councilman Withelder.
Thank you, Mayor. I came in on about the middle of the JDA with NCS and the city of Mesquite, about midway through my term, and I must admit that I thought that we had a very viable relationship going on, and they were certainly very, very viable partners. And if things could have turned out the way they were written, and hopefully they were going to turn out, I think it would have been an absolute smashing success for everybody. Unfortunately, it didn't turn out that way, and to echo Mr. Rapson's comments, I believe we've got to look at down the road and what further we can take both NCS and ourselves. So that's just a little brief comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any further comments from council? Mr. Littman, do you have a comment, or did you want to make that motion?
The motion, please.
1 second. I too want to echo a couple of comments made here. My job as mayor is to gather as much information as I can and as many options as I can for the city. Those are my reasonings behind speaking to Mr. Parda. It has been my reasoning behind working with any group that comes before us. We need to have all the options in front of us before we can make a good decision. Obviously, council's going to make a decision tonight, but I wanted to echo some things that were said. NCS has done their part of the job. Regardless of what we've read in the blogs and the comments, they have done their part of this job. Obviously, there's been some things that have fallen through, but that's, we'll leave it at that. And I think this council has tried to work fairly with Mr. Parda. I hope he would agree with that, and we appreciate your time and efforts. With that being said, Councilman Littman.
Thank you. My motion is to approve option 2, terminating the existing joint development agreement with NCS and to direct staff to prepare the JDA termination agreement.
We have a motion for option 2. Do we have a second? Councilman Hafen. Councilman Hafen has seconded that motion. We will call for the vote. Those in favor? And those opposed? That is a 4-to-1 vote. That motion for option 2 carries. Thank you.